Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
to the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. Thanks to Austrian Audio, making passion heard. And TriBooth, don't forget the code TRIPAP200 to get $200 off your TriBooth. And of course, from Centrance and the Pro Audio Suite, the new Passport VO. But anyway, you've been busy over the weekend, Mr.
Yeah, I had a
Robbo.
busy 3 days because I finally got around to building a studio in this new place. We talked about it a few weeks ago and I finally got around to doing it on the weekend. So I've been, if you could see what I'd been working in, you'd be shaking your head because it was just, computer monitors leaned up against the wall and baffles leaned up against the wall and mixing in headphones and all sorts of fun stuff. So I finally got around to getting it all done.
But your clients were no more worse for the wear.
Well, do you know what? That's one thing that I've actually patted myself on the back for is that I actually haven't had any comments from anybody. So it's kind of been nice. So
I'm guessing the headphones you used were the Austrian Audio headphones.
they would indeed be, which I'm glad I took the time to get to know when I had the old studio and I could sort of, A/B and see what I was hearing. So that probably kind of helped.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did want to talk about today and something that struck me as I was putting my room together and looking back at some old photos is comparing the first studio or serious studio that I ever built to this one. And it's kind of been a bit of an eye-opener and probably a bit of a pointer in terms of where technology's gone and all that sort of stuff. But the big one for me is Patch Bay. Because I've always had a patch bay. The first time studio I built, to put this in context, would have been, the first serious one would have been in about 2007 or so. And I had, you're going to laugh at this, George, I had an O2R, I had a patch bay, I had passive speakers, so I had a power amp and a Mac and all that sort of stuff. So it's, compared to today, I now have a Digi 002 in the rack, my old faithful Digi 002. I have the Drawmer, and I have my Atom A7Xs and a big knob and a MIDI keyboard, and that's about it. So it's kind of...
Which computer are you running now?
I'm still running my old 2012 Mac Pro, the cheese grater, but that's going to change very soon. So... It was going to change a while ago. It was going to be going
But
Mac.
when you change that, say bye-bye to the O2.
Yes, bye-bye to the old faithful. Yeah, I know. The 002. Yeah, that will be
Right.
that will be a sad day. I do like it. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the simplicity of it. I don't know what it is I like about it, but maybe I'm just used to it too. So anyway.
Well, you know what? Every piece of gear that I at least look at as really old and obsolete, there still seems to be a market for it because I've been getting rid of boxes of gear that have been accumulating for a couple of years on eBay. I just sold an Apogee, not even Apogee, an Avid Duet.
Oh.
This was this weird Apogee Duet 2 that was branded Avid. Their name was on it, and it only works with Pro Tools,
Yeah.
And one guy bought it by mistake, said, no, it turns out it's obsolete. I can't use it anyway because they stopped supporting it in 2018. I relisted it and somebody else bought it for $60.
Yeah.
So, this is stuff that was just barely above e-waste, and yet there's people buying it.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
also sold an old Apogee 1, the original Apogee 1, 11, 12-year-old audio interface at least, and got $40. So... yeah, people still want this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I've got, because I have, a bit like Andrew, I have a road rig because I occasionally get called out to go and do remote recordings and stuff. So I have my my old, again, 2012 13-inch MacBook Pro, and I have an M-Box Pro, which is in a road case, so I could sort of carry it on a plane with me or whatever, and throw a few mic leads in and a couple of microphones in a backpack. And I've been down to Melbourne a few times to record stuff and bits and pieces. So,
which generation M-Box Pro is that?
Look, I'm no good with numbers, but it's the old black one.
Black with like curved edges.
It's got 4 mic inputs and all the bells and whistles.
Gen 3.
Yeah, Gen 3. That would probably be right. So I was looking, because obviously that will probably have to go too. I was looking around and they're still getting like $300 here for those things. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So it's like this, and I don't know, I'm sure Google is wired into my brain sometimes, because, I'll jump onto Facebook or TikTok or one of those and be zooming around and stuff that I'm sure I've never said out loud. So it's not like anything could have heard me, but I've been thinking to myself, pops up. And I was scouting around last night on TikTok, and there was a video came up about pimping up your 2012 Mac Pro and getting it to run Big Sur and all this sort of stuff. It's like, I've never said it out loud, but sure enough, the video turns up. So while technically it's obsolete, there's people out there who are figuring out workarounds for all this stuff as well.
There's probably people out there using 2009 Mac Pros.
You would think so.
Maybe if Robert was here,
he would
probably say me.
He definitely would.
He's not afraid to keep old machines running and tuned. And our buddy Jeff Berlin, I always see him posting on various chats and saying how I keep old Macs running. And then that became a discussion of security concerns, because once a Mac becomes obsolete, which is about 10 years, they do not push up security updates anymore, right? So now you're on your own to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. I think the reason that Robert doesn't actually sell his gear, because no one wants to buy it, because they're always looking for equipment that comes out of a smoke-free environment.
Yeah, well, there's always that, isn't there?
That could be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it.
But
well, I love to see what the outcome is of your new Mac. I'm sure you'll give us a report what it's like transitioning to that. You asked about audio interfaces to replace the 002. Did you just settle on what you're going to get?
I haven't really. No, I thought I had when I was going to buy it the first time around, but now I'm sort of scratching my head going, The thing I do have lying around and figured I might give a fly is the Rodecaster.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, so I might throw that in the middle.
Well, you don't need a ton of I/O, right? You don't need like a whole bunch of analog ends.
No, not anymore. That's the thing. If you look at the back of the big knob, I've got 2-track A is just the audio out of my laptop. Obviously, DAW mix is Pro Tools. And then the only other thing going in there comes off 7 and 8 on the 002 rack, which is a headphone mix for when I record this show, because you guys listen to each other on Source Connect now.
Right.
And now I'm actually monitoring off Pro Tools, which is receiving you guys from Source Connect.
Got it.
So I've got a headphone mix that comes back to there. And that's it, really. And the outputs is the Adams speakers, and the only thing I'm not sure about is I'm pretty sure you can only run one set of speakers on the Rodecaster, and I have 2. I have my crappy old set, so I'm not quite sure how I'll figure that out. But
couldn't you use how many headphone outs are there?
I think there's 4, right? So
could you not use?
So I probably could
for speakers.
I probably could. That's not a bad idea. Might be able to.
The good thing about the headphone outs is, are you talking about the Rodecaster Pro 1 or 2?
2. Yeah.
The good thing about the 2 is every headphone out is assignable, and you can create a mix unique to that headphone out.
Oh, well, there you go.
So it's really flexible.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
While it's really lacking in line outputs, which it certainly is, you at least can use these. You can repurpose the headphone outs and use them instead. You just have to have the right cabling. You need like a TRS stereo to pair of 1/4-inch mono cables, like an insert cable.
To be fair, my beam monitoring is a crappy old pair of computer speakers.
Yeah, well, all you need is an 1/8-inch to 1/4-inch adapter.
That's right, and away we go.
Headphone jack, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, you'll probably be fine then. I keep forgetting how those headphone jacks are actually the outputs that were missing. Because the original Rodecaster, it had the same 4 headphone outputs, but they were not assignable. They were all the same. And it was not nearly as flexible. Now with that ability to create mixes, you probably will. I think you really can do everything you need to do with a Rodecaster Pro 2. I think you're set.
I'll be interested to have a play with it. Absolutely. Because I haven't been able to, unfortunately, due to technology constraints with the old Mac Pro. But I'm really looking forward to being able to plug it in and have a bit of a muck around.
So you can't plug the Rodecaster Pro 2 into
it won't run
2012 Mac Pro?
Won't run the software. It won't run what's their Rode software? Rode Central or whatever it wants. It wants some software.
Are you sure you need to install it? Isn't it driverless?
I thought so. I thought I did. When I read the instructions, I didn't actually try, I'll be honest. I read the instructions.
It would be an interesting test just to plug it in your Mac Pro and see if it shows up as a...
Yeah,
because what you see is a multi-track and a chat. You see 2 sets of drivers.
Right, okay.
And I feel pretty confident that it's a class-compliant USB device, meaning you don't have to install anything to get it to work. You could be right. You have to install things to use those cool Rode extras, the Rode Connect and Central and all that. But I think it's worth a shot just to plug it in. And if it shows up as an I/O on your Mac Pro without any software at all, then it's a win. Otherwise, you're right.
Well,
you got to wait.
It's sitting on the shelf right behind me. I'm looking at it right now. Maybe I might try that.
Because the thing about the Rodecaster Pro, I mean, it's just so flexible and it has, basically everything you could possibly need, I would have thought.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm interested in playing with.
It only has one limit, and the limit is that it only has 4 mic preamps, which is plenty for most.
For me,
I just set it up in a 4 microphone studio. We needed a 5th for the producer, so I literally rigged up an XY splitter for the 4th mic preamp. And then I have a mic mute button, so the producer can just cut on their mic when they want to say something, and it just mixes it in on track 4. That was the only way I could, or channel 4, but it was a workable workaround. So
I know that if when I've got the M1, the Mac, and I got rid of Total Mix and the RME from the PC, and I was looking for some kind of interface to run my external preamps, outboard gear, into the Mac, and I ended up buying the Audion ID44, which we've discussed in depth on many occasions. But had I had the Rodecaster Pro 2, I probably wouldn't have gone down that Audion route. I don't think. I would have just stuck with the Rode because I had the 4 inputs, which is perfect. I'm guessing it would do the same thing as the Audion does, as in, I don't think it's a complete bypass of the internal preamps, but neither is the Audion.
Right.
So you just have to be mindful that you don't hit the preamps in the Audion or whatever the interface is too hard and get distortion, even though your levels are low.
Right. I mean, you can run the preamps all the way down to 0 dB of gain. So I don't know how much input level that will handle, but it's likely that it'll take a pretty high input before clipping.
Yeah.
I mean, if it can take at least 10 plus dB of input, you're probably going to be just fine.
Yeah.
That's in the spec sheet. I don't know what it is, but actually the one I'm on, it has an actual line in mode.
All right.
You click line in and it still has a trim control, but I don't know if that's doing other things electronically or just reducing the gain. Whatever the case is, though, it does have a line in mode.
Does the Rodecaster have a talkback?
It does not have a talkback.
Because I was just looking at the big knob, and that's one thing that I do use. I used to use, and I'll probably go back to with the Rodecaster, I guess, but I used to use this mic, my desk mic, as my talkback. But then I figured out one day, to my surprise, that rather than having to keep remembering to mute myself in Pro Tools, there was the talkback on the big knob. So I've been using that. I send that to Pro Tools and just add that into my mix that I'm sending to everybody. So it's nice. It's convenient to be able to just sort of push the button and let go rather than having to remember to mute. Well, I group my mutes. I mute the client feed and I mute my feed. So I just mute one, you mute them both. But you've still got to remember to do it. Whereas when you take your finger off the talkback, bang, it's pretty much done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's easier to forget if you're not actually hearing yourself.
That's right.
If you're only using speakers, for example, it is easy to forget that TalkBack is on.
Yeah.
Unless you have a fancy TalkBack rig that dims the speakers when you're talking back, which I don't know if the Mackie's big knob does or not.
No, it doesn't. It just turns them off.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
Yeah.
the ID44 has got a talkback and it will do a dim, but if I'm actually doing a session, I'll have it on cut.
Right.
It's the fourth, one of the four channels. I have one going to another external preamp, which is the Sebatron, which I use as my talkback. And that works really well.
Not bad.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Someone did suggest to me that I map from my MIDI keyboard, that I map one of the function buttons to the mute in Pro Tools. I've never actually tried to do that.
Sounds unnecessarily failure prone.
It does, and that's why, to be honest with you, that's why I've never really done it, because I kind of thought, okay, that's fucking with things that don't need to be fucked with. But it's sort of like
it's like telling someone if they ride a bike, look, you can save money on tires by buying a monocycle.
Yeah, that's right.
You know that's going to end in disaster.
So yeah, I've sort of stayed away from that.
I even have a box here called a Stream Deck made by Elgato, and I have a dedicated button for muting Zoom. And it literally lights up on there saying that it's muted or not muted.
Yeah.
It's not as reliable.
Yeah.
It just isn't as reliable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes it has a delay after I press it. A physical switch on the microphone, hard to beat it.
Yeah.
It's very reliable.
There's something comforting about clicking the mouse button directly onto whatever it is you're trying to do and knowing that it's just going to happen, rather than hoping that half a dozen processes in the middle do what they're supposed to do, really, isn't there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as long as you see a big meters that shows you're not sending an audio signal on screen, then you can feel really confident. But otherwise, everything else is just, I hope it actually did cut my mic.
Yeah.
I thought I cut my mic.
While you're sitting there swearing at the producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose thinking, talking about things that have become redundant, probably a talkback button has. But and maybe I'm old school, but there is still something about physically, using your finger and pushing that button and seeing the red light come on and knowing that they can hear me, and then taking it off, seeing the red light go off and go, okay, I can swear my fucking head off now. There is something comforting about that.
I do not disagree with that.
Yes, I was always told right in the beginning of my early days of radio career, whenever there's a microphone in the room, just be careful what you say, because you just never know. And I did it. I actually did do it once, and it was a bit embarrassing. But
I think everybody's put their foot in their mouth with a mic in a room.
Have I ever told you my David Day opera singer faux pas? Have I told you that? Have I told it on the show? If I have, I'll cut it out.
I don't think so.
I was at a radio station called Triple M in Adelaide here in Australia in my career, a long time ago in my career. And there was an old rock and roller of a morning presenter, a guy called David Day.
Daisy.
Who was Daisy, who was sadly passed, but was sort of like the Rick Dees of Adelaide radio, but he not in terms of pop, he was your classic rocker. So one day the opera came to town, and someone decided that it would be cool if we got one of the opera singers to come in, and rather than have the promotional vehicles out on the street and the drivers calling in going, yeah, come down to such and such a park and find us, we're giving away icy cold cans of Coke and blah, 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 that we get the opera singer to sing the locations and the products with this opera music. So the day arrives and this opera singer turns up, and she's your classically overweight, middle-aged lady. And I put her in the booth and I got her all mic'd up, and she'd brought some music with her that she'd figured out what she was going to sing to. And she'd brought that in on CD, and I was loading that into the computer at the time. I can't remember what I was working on, whatever it was. It wasn't Pro Tools. And I had the microphone open, like you could, it was one of those ones where you could double tap it and it would stay open on the analog console. And we were just talking backwards and forwards, and I was doing something, and it was silent, and in walks Daisy, and sort of, it doesn't say anything, but it should have clicked at the time. He didn't say anything, but he sort of waved at this lady through the glass, and she waved back. And Daisy turns around and leans his bum against the console and says, Why are opera singers always fucking fat? And from the booth you hear, excuse me?
Oh, shit.
And Daisy turns bright red. I swear to God, he didn't turn around. He kept his back to the glass. He slid his ass along the console, reached over, opened the door and walked out and just left me to deal with it.
Good on you, Daisy.
Dear, I'll never forget it. And I was left to profusely apologise and say, look, I'm sorry, that's just Daisy. He's so uncouth. Yeah, I agree. How dare he say that, blah, blah, blah. And we finally got it done, but Jesus Christ, it came close to never happening.
Oh.
Yeah, good on you. Yeah. Daisy.
The good old talkback button. So, yeah, anyway.
Well, you know, if we replace all of us with AI, we won't have to worry about that anymore. But here's a quote from Joe Walsh who says, if we don't have AI, who's going to destroy hotel rooms?
There you go. Absolutely.
And on that note,
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite with thanks to TriBooth and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.